Reclaiming language is one way that communities define themselves on their own terms. But what does it mean to reclaim a term? Well, let's find out today by talking about the word queer. Hi, I'm Kristen with Unexpected Virtual Tours and Training, your destination for radically creative virtual events and training for remote and hybrid teams. Throughout history, marginalized groups have taken words meant to silence them and made them their own. When we talk about reclaiming a word, we're talking about taking something that has been used against a certain group and reinventing it as something empowering. Now, this transformation can take a few paths. Sometimes it's about restoring a word's original intent that's been lost to history and violence. Other times, we give a word new life with new meaning by reframing it in a way that creates solidarity and flips power dynamics. Despite the positive movements being made to reclaim words, not all reclamations are universal or uncontested. A reclaimed word may be empowering in one context and deeply offensive in another, especially if used by someone outside of the group that the word refers to. Context matters, intent matters, and most importantly, community matters. Because reclamation, it's not a solo effort. It's a conversation. The conversation about the word queer started much farther back in history than you may think. Queer has taken on many meanings since at least the early 16th century. The first known definitions that we know of are odd, peculiar, eccentric. By the 19th century, it had started to be associated with people's identity. And by the early 20th century, it was being hurled at people as a slur against anyone who didn't conform to rigid ideas of sexuality or gender. It became shorthand for people, especially men, who were suspected of being gay or simply not performing the stereotypical masculine behaviors expected of them. So in other words, it referred to outsiders, people who didn't belong. One little word, but it was used to shame, threaten, and isolate. It wasn't just a word, it was a weapon. Understandably, for a long time, many in the LGBTQ+ community wanted nothing to do with this term, but then something shifted. In the late 1980s and 90s, activists from the group Queer Nation led the charge to reclaim this word. And over time, many people within the LGBTQ+ community began to redefine queerness in parallel with the rise of pride celebrations. From a weapon to a shield, queer became a new way to signal defiance and freedom from traditional labels. But of course, not everyone reclaimed the word at the same time or even in the same way. Some people, especially from Generation X or baby boomers, they carried painful associations with the word queer. For example, Jane Rogers and Vicky Cooper, a couple in their late 70s, once mentioned in an interview in News is Out, an LGBTQIA-focused news outlet, that they're not comfortable with the Q word because they remember the negative intent. It's important to remember that reclamation isn't for everyone. Just because a word has been reclaimed within a certain community doesn't mean it's open to the public. A term can feel empowering among people who share similar experiences of community, trauma, and identity, but the same term can be offensive, even harmful, when used by someone outside of that group. So in other words, reclamation isn't about the word itself, it's a symbol of power for those who have experienced the harm. And those are the people who have the right to reshape their narrative. Using reclaimed language without the shared history can feel insincere, maybe even invasive. So if you don't know whether you should be using a term, the best approach is to listen, respect boundaries, and do your research. Ultimately, reclaiming language is about more than just words. It's about agency, choosing how we identify ourselves, how we tell our stories, and how we resist being defined by others. Now, if you want to keep learning more about respecting cultures, be sure to check out the free resources at unexpectedvirtualtours.com and comment below to share your thoughts. We believe in building workplaces for everyone to feel seen and respected. So join us on that journey. Folks, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.